Hey there, Harmony Birch from The Reformer.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And I realized that I forgot to say at the top of the hour, my apologies, that this segment of Green Mountain Mornings is being filmed by BCTV, Brattleboro Community Television. It will be online at brattleboro.tv later and is being sponsored. Green Mountain Mornings tonight is being sponsored by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. I forgot that. Can't forget that. Because everyone at BCTV does such a great job. In fact, I have to tell a cute story because I think, Harmony, you will appreciate this. My mother recently moved in to Valley Cares, and I was having lunch with her. And from across the room, this woman waves at me. She goes, "Yoo-hoo, Olga Peters, I see you on TV." I see you on BCTV. So I got to hear all about everything she watches on BCTV. It was kind of fun. I appreciated it. Harmony, tell us, going to the other end of the age spectrum, tell us about Winston Prouty and some of their efforts and studies around early childhood education.
Right. So if people don't know, there is definitely a child care crisis kind of all over the country, but definitely in Vermont and definitely in Windham County. Currently, there are 8 slots open for infant care. So if you have a baby, like a singular infant, you have, and you probably don't have this option anymore because you have to sign up way in advance. There are only 8 places that they can go to in the entire county. And
wow.
That's really high, like a singular spot. So, because no other childcare providers, they're all at capacity. No other childcare providers can take them. And that's really high for Windham County. Usually it's much less.
Fewer open slots, you
yes,
mean? Wow.
Fewer open slots. So Winston Prouty has kind of done this thing where they've created a community coalition because it's really an economic issue, not having childcare. We talk a lot in Windham County about attracting young people and about filling our schools and about, just attracting young families. And we can't do that if there's no childcare to support them because in most households, most parents work.
Yeah.
So you need that childcare, and especially if you're trying to attract new people to move here, they're not going to have family support to take care of children.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So Winston Prouty created this community coalition to kind of look into what different businesses and organizations can do to combat the childcare crisis. And they recently released, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, they recently released this survey for employers and for employees about what childcare looks like for them. Yes. So there was a survey done by a different organization about 5 years ago, but Winston Prouty is kind of expecting that things will be a little bit different because demographics have changed a little bit. Fun fact, I've heard that in elementary schools, we have a lot more diversity right now in Windham County, which is pretty cool. And, jobs have changed. The workforce has changed. A lot of people will be retiring. Some employers might not have anybody who is of childbearing age or like who has children at their companies. So they're kind of looking for an update. And with this survey, they're hoping to use that data to make employers further aware of why policies that kind of support family leave and support flexibility and support working parents are important, but also to make the community more aware of why childcare is needed.
Yeah, I've spoken to a number of women, and especially women who were running for political office, whether it was select board or state house or whatever, talking about that kind of catch-22 of they want to return to the workforce. Their family can use the money of a second wage, and yet childcare can be so expensive that they weigh, should I be home?
Yeah.
And just save that money, or should I be in the workforce? But I kind of want to be in the workforce. That whole weighing and measuring of, and I'm sure it happens to fathers too. I've just happened to have the conversation with mostly women.
Yeah, well, because it impacts mostly women, sometimes men can leave and women kind of not that women don't leave, but it's traditionally seen, child rearing is traditionally seen as a woman's role, and it's a little bit harder to get away from, I think, as a woman. But yeah, that's a good point. Chloe Leary, the executive director of Winston Prouty, said that childcare tends to cost as much as community college tuition. So it's about $1,000 to $2,000 a month. And
wow.
Yeah, knowing I have two parents who have all like kids who are not young adults, who are still in school and elementary school, I think that's kind of low from what I've heard and from watching them deal with childcare. And the thing is, some parents do have the option to be like, okay, do I want to be a working mother or not? But a lot of families don't have that option. What do you do for any sort of single parent household? And a lot of low income families don't have that option. It takes a lot of sacrifice to not be a working parent because wages are low and because the cost of living is so high.
And in this survey, was Winston Prouty at any point of talking about possible solutions, or are they just information gathering at this point?
With the survey, they are information gathering, but they have been talking with the coalition that came up with this survey about possible solutions. So some solutions include like bringing your infant to work if that's possible, which is something we've covered in the paper before. There are businesses locally doing that, and just kind of giving more flexibility to parents. More sick leave. If a child has to stay home for a snow day or because they're sick, like giving parents more flexibility in general. Because it costs a lot to hire somebody new.
This is true. And then get them up to speed and all that institutional memory and everything.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Any kind of looking forward with this survey and the information that will be coming out, any dates or timelines we should be paying attention to?
So they're going to have the survey open for about a month. In case people want to, they can find the survey on Winston Prouty's website. And I don't know what they're going to do with the survey once they have it. I think it's just going to be an informational gathering phase. But if people are interested in childcare issues, they should take the survey so that they can have that institutional knowledge. And I think Winston Prouty would probably be open to talking to people about their ideas about childcare. Or if there are, I don't know, childcare providers who want to talk and being like, how do I start up or something like that.
Looking forward to hearing more about that. You had a chance to interview some of the candidates who are running for open seats in Windham County, which they seem to be coming out of the woodwork. Wendy Levy and I from the Commons talked about this a little bit last week. And I personally am excited because we're going to have some contested races.
Yeah.
And we haven't had contested races really all that. I'm trying to think back, and maybe one or two, maybe a few. Like, really, it's not something that has happened a lot in Windham County.
Okay. See, I just thought I was crazy because this is my first time doing election coverage. And I was like, oh, this must be how it is all the time.
Were you feeling a little overwhelmed?
I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I don't even know. I'm like really worried somebody else is going to announce their candidacy or I've missed somebody. I've called people who were rumored to be candidates, but, they've, at a certain level, if you're running for office, you got to let the press know.
Yes. and you have to let the press know in your local area, too, because there's been a few candidates I have found out they're running because someone in Burlington has contacted me.
Oh, boy.
To tell me they're running. And, yeah, you have to let your local press know as well.
There's only so much we can do. We're very busy people. But yes, so David Dean's old seat, and Mike Marquis' current seat, those two seats for Westminster, Putney, and Dummerston are, there's a pretty exciting race going on right there. And the candidates all have kind of similar values, which I also think is interesting. Like, I do not envy the voters who have to vote in this race because I think it's a tough call.
Okay.
Yeah. But the two newcomers are Nader Hashim, Nader like otter. And he's a state trooper who, he's 29 years old, has a child in elementary school, and lives in Dummerston, I believe. And Cindy Jerome, who is best known for her work with the Houghton Home. And yeah, they're both running for office. And Nodder is all about, as a state trooper, he sees a lot about people kind of who get left behind. He sees a lot of issues with the opiate crisis and people who don't know how to obtain resources to help them out. So he's really focused on trying to combat that, trying to educate people about opiates and, install clinics and trying to educate people about resources they can use, people who are impoverished about resources that they can use to become less impoverished. Cindy Jerome was very focused on, she wants to raise the minimum wage. That's a big thing for her. So she also has kind of that poverty aspect. Universal health care is also a really big thing for her because she had a son who was hit by a truck in Thailand.
Wow.
Yeah, suffered a severe brain injury. And because he was under the certain age, I think it's 26 that you need to be on your parents' Obamacare plan. I'm pretty sure it's 26.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was able to be on her healthcare plan, and because she had good healthcare, he was able to receive really good healthcare. And I think he probably just graduated from UVM with a master's degree. So that was something that really inspired her and made her think, wow, we all need universal health care.
Yeah.
Like every child should deserve good health care. So that's a big thing for her. And then childcare is also a really big thing for her because like Mike Maricki, actually, she's very well versed with this. Well, I forget what it's called. It's adversity, though, essentially. There's a certain scoring system.
ACEs, adverse childhood experiences.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, she's well-versed with the study about ACEs, which essentially is children who have adverse experiences and don't have the love and support they need to overcome them essentially end up having health issues, and they're also shown to have more issues with crime and like more mental health issues. But what's really scary is that it physically impacts your health.
Yeah.
So it ends up being a drain on society because people need that health care, and sometimes people end up in jail, and people with mental health issues, are not always able to work. So it's really beneficial to society if we support children. So that's kind of her thinking. Mm-hmm. And Nutter also seems to be interested in a lot of these things as well. But yeah, he, as a law enforcement agent, is really worried about reaching those people on the fringes. One of the things, I got to talk to him through his campaign event because that was just the only time we could meet. And one of the things that was really interesting about him is that a lot of people that went to the event were interested in the fact that he was 29. And that's pretty young to run for office. Mm-hmm. And in Vermont, we talk a lot about attracting young people. So it's interesting to see young people in politics, but also how young people can come into office and start changing things, and how to... He's interested in making Vermont more attractive to young people and to all people. Nodder's also... interesting again, I keep using that adjective because he is from Iran, and or he's not from Iran, but his family is. His parents were immigrants, and so he's a state trooper who has a lot of experience with racial bias. So that's something he talks a lot about too, figuring out why people have racial bias. And I personally think that's interesting because we live in Vermont, which is kind of a white state. And he can kind of speak to that. But he can also speak to that as a state trooper, which is, there's always interesting relations between police and racial minorities. So he's able to kind of delve into that from both sides.
He does have a lot of interesting perspective. I had hoped to have him on the show this week. Unfortunately, our schedules didn't work out. But I am looking forward to speaking with him and Cindy. Now, Mike Maricki is running again as well, correct?
Yes, Mike Maricki is running again. He thinks that there's still work to be done. He's been fighting hard for change. He's been fighting hard with the rest of our legislation to try and raise the minimum wage, to try and make it safer for school children in terms of gun violence. He's been fighting to make people aware about adverse childhood experiences, and he thinks that there's more work that he can do.
Did he mention, I'm trying to remember, how many terms has he served?
I don't remember off the top of my head, and I don't know if I wrote it down, so that might be a Google thing.
Now, all these folks, Cindy, Nodder, and Mike, are all running on the Democratic ticket?
Yes, they are. And I have not heard of anybody running on the Republican ticket yet. I've heard of rumors. I tried reaching out to some people. If you're running, you should let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't heard of anyone who is yet opposing them Republican. But to be fair, from what I know of Putney and Dummerston and Westminster, it does tend to be a kind of liberal area. So
It does.
maybe there is no one running. I don't know.
It would be cool, though, and they could also run on the progressive ticket.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I forget how big the Progressive Party is in Vermont. That's still new to me.
Well, as I got up on my soapbox last week with Wendy, this is when you need to be paying attention, folks, because the primary is when you will really make your choice, because you will be choosing 2 people out of 3, right?
Yes.
There's 2 open seats.
Yeah, there are 2
3
open
people
seats.
running.
Yeah, so for the representative seat, yes. You will be choosing 2 out of 3 so far. There might be even more.
Or more. And so if you really care about a certain candidate, make sure you get out to the primary, because that's really where the choice will be made. Because that's when the field will get whittled down.
And I mean, again, this is my first Vermont election cycle, but I feel like it's really interesting so far, having covered the representative, having, I've done a little bit of work with Kornheiser and Stewart so far, and the governor race is really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
You have a 13-year-old running. You have the first transgender candidate running. I think that Ehlers seems like pretty progressive, and that's kind of exciting. There are a lot of exciting things for people to look out for this primary election. So, get registered to vote.
And unfortunately, that's all the time we have. But hey, thank you so much for coming in today, Harmony.
Thank you.